Up until now, we've looked at fractions and decimals, and we've looked at addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of both fractions and decimals. Now, we're going to look at a way to basically convert between the two. So, if a question gives me a fraction, how can I get a decimal? Or if I'm given a decimal, how can I convert that to a fraction? Now, there's a number of ways to do this, which we're going to go through. And basically, if we have a good understanding of place value, then it should make sense as to why we can do stuff like this. So for example, if I have 0.7, I know that the 7 is in which column of place value, Mickey? The tenths. So if I wanted to write this as a fraction, you can see that they've written 0.7 as 7 over 10. Why do you think it's 10? Why have they written over 10? Because it's in the tenths column. Now, you always have to look at the smallest place value. So here we have 0.351. Now, if I wanted to write this as a fraction, they write 351. Now, the lowest amount of place value is occupied by the 1. And what column is that in? The thousandths. So you can see they've written 351 over 1,000. So we've converted this decimal into this fraction. Now they give another example. We have 0.15. Now the smallest value of place value is what? The 5 occupies that position, but what's the column that it's in? Hundredths. So you can see they've written 15 over 100, and now they've written 3 over 20. How did they go from 15 over 100 to 3 over 20? Yeah, they just simplified. They divided top and bottom by 5. Alright, so let's do a couple examples of these. So the title is just going to be 3F, converting between fractions and decimals. So we have 0.42, and we want to write it as a fraction. To do this, the first thing we have to do is to look at the number occupying the lowest place value, which is the 2. So the place value in that column is what? Hundredths. So we can write 42 over, so you can write 0.42 is equal to 42 over 100. Now guess what would happen if you went 42 divided by 100 on your calculator? What value do you think you'd get? Yeah, 0.42, so you can see it checks out. Now, can we simplify this fraction? Alright, what number could I divide each of those by? Yep. Alright, we could start by going by 2, so if I did top and bottom by 2, this would become 21, and this would become 50. So it's equal to 21 over 50. Is there any more simplification that can happen there? No, therefore that is your answer. You always have to give your answers in simplest form.
We have to write it out like this when we're showing our working out.
Yep. Okay, now 37 over 1,000 is effectively the same as going 37 divided by 1,000. Now we should be comfortable in moving a decimal place. So at the moment, if I just write 37, there's definitely no decimals involved in that, right? How could I write 37 so it does have a decimal without changing its value? Yep. 37.0 divided by 1,000. Do we all agree that the value has not changed by writing 0.0? Okay, now a trick that we can use, since I'm dividing by 1,000, I can move my decimal place. Now if I'm dividing, is 37 going to get bigger or smaller? Smaller. So would I be moving my decimal place to the left or to the right? To the left. If I move it to the right, the number's going to get bigger. It'd be multiplying. So since I'm dividing by 1,000, I'm going to move it 3 decimal places to the left. So it's going to go 1, 2. I have no more numbers. Could I add something? Yep. 0. So then 3, so there's going to be 0. So we're going to get 0.037. Sorry, 37. I don't know why I wrote 5. Alright, so we've moved the decimal place 3 positions to the left. And you could check if I move it 3 positions to the right, would I get 37 again? 1, 2, 3. Yes, I would. So I've just converted that into a decimal. So we're going to write 5 over 8 as a decimal. Now 5 over 8 is essentially saying 5 divided by 8. So I've got 5 and I'm dividing it by 8. So if we were to set it up as a short division, would we all agree that that's how we'd set it up if we're going 5 divided by 8? Now, I can see a problem. 8 is not going to fit into 5. So remember the trick that we learnt. We can add a decimal place in here, and we can add a 0, because that does not change the value of 5. I'm just going to do a couple of zeros. Alright, so we start off by saying, does 8 fit into 5? No, so we have to put a 0. Then the decimal place will line up with the decimal place. Now remember, 8 didn't go into the 5. We can't just neglect the 5. So now we're seeing if 8 will go into 50. Alright, so 8 fits into 56 times because 8 times 6 is 48. So it goes in 6 times. And how many were left over? 2, so I carry my 2 here. Then I have to say, does 8 fit into 20? Twice. But it didn't fit in exactly. There was some left over. So to deal with that, I can add another 0 here. And I can put my remaining 4 there. Now does 8 fit into 40? 5 times. Exactly. So I get 0.625. We call that a terminating decimal because it stops there. An example of a non-terminating decimal, which we spoke about this morning, was pi. Something like pi that goes on forever and ever and ever, and pi doesn't have any pattern that happens. Now, in non-terminating decimals, you can also have repetition. So sometimes you'll see a pattern repeating, and it just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating forever. This we just call a terminating decimal.